Now, the government officials have recommended that Horowhenua and Pukekohe be treated separately from the latest national freshwater rules when limits on nitrogen toxicity are set. Horowhenua market gardener and Manawatu-Whanganui regional councillor Emma Clarke is adamant any removal of the district from government nitrogen rules is a far from a get out of jail free card for growers, and she joins us now on the phone. Good evening, Emma.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Now, Richard Rennie has written a great piece here on farmersweekly.co.nz around this. And it's a situation I'm following with great interest around Minister Parker suggesting that the current regional rules don't go far enough, yet at the same time national rules should come in and give exemption. Would you be able to set the scene for our audience and our viewers around the situation, what you've been lobbying to regional council for? You are a councillor as well as a market gardener, and then when you lay over top this national freshwater rules exempting market gardens, what's going on?
Yeah, so way before I became a councillor, I was obviously a market gardener, and the one plan came in and hit the dairy boys pretty hard in our region. And then all of a sudden, the vegetable growers were drawn into it. Now, the way it was set up was a very much a pastoral system system, so we couldn't apply to it as vegetable farmers, and we found ourselves not being able to be consented. So there's over about 60 of us who are unconsented in this region for a pretty important activity in terms of food production for the country. So we've been lobbying Horizons for probably 6 odd plus years now, and very intensely as it came up to Plan Change 2. And Plan Change 2, although it revises the nitrogen leaching table, which brings in the dairy boys across in the Tararua, was nowhere near what we could do as vegetable production units. So.
Okay, so you haven't landed anywhere with the regional council yet, can get effectively a hall pass from a national standard. What makes Horowhenua and Pukekohe more important than other market garden regions? And I know there's a lot of market gardeners here in Canterbury that have to abide by that blanket rule of ECAN.
Yeah, so ECANS was really great. They started down the Horizons path and then backtracked and gave their growers an achievable pathway to consent by using the HORNZ EMS standard. So Woodhaven Gardens is the only farm so far to have had that audit and be accredited for EMS, and yet we don't meet it under Horizons because they haven't wanted to separate pastoral farming from vegetable production. And Minister Parker, rightly so, has understood the science behind vegetable growing, and that is we use more nitrogen to produce that food, but per hectare of food we are far more environmentally efficient than other forms of farming.
Okay, so it's not about the input, it's about the output you're suggesting. However, his freshwater rules are suggesting it's the flip side. He's trying to monitor input rather than effect.
Yes, but our effect, if we use the proper mitigations, and which I think our farm particularly has highlighted as completely achievable while being viable, hence winning the Regional Balance Farm Environmental Awards just recently, means that we can put mitigations in place that although we may have high inputs, we can mitigate those outputs, the leaching of nitrate into the waterways.
I'd like to I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, sorry. Why isn't it on a case-by-case basis with the land use that is chosen by the property owner and the output in a manageable system, as opposed to ring fencing a style of food production or picking out particular regions that get a hall pass, like producing food.
Yeah, it's certainly not.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a hall pass by any means. We still have to achieve a environmental standard. We have to have a farm environmental plan which is independently audited by a government agency. So if we aren't showing those reductions in nitrogen use, you're not going to get consented anyway because you haven't met that standard. And if all growers across the whole of New Zealand have their EMS bolt on to what they're already doing in their good agricultural practice management, we will be well and beyond where we need to be in terms of mitigating our nutrient use.
So can you just give us an understanding of what it's like for you being between a rock and a hard place, wearing a councillor's hat and being a market gardener?
Yeah, I need to say in my opinion, because that's what I was taught in the very first week of council school. So in my opinion, it's hugely frustrating. None of us are sitting here saying we want to be environmental terrorists. We are saying we want to produce food for this country. We are in one of the best regions in the whole of New Zealand to produce that food. Please allow us a pathway. And as a councillor, let's just say there's a few holes in the tongue that haven't resulted from piercings.
Oh, lovely put. Because there's so many stakeholders in that particular region. And of course, everybody has their own 2 cents that they want to. Well, how far are we going to get towards some form of a solution? Or does the government have to step in, do you believe, and completely reform the RMA?
I don't think the RMA needs to be reformed. I think if you refer to, and I'm just taking this off the top of my head, I think it's in Section 5 of the RMA. If we abide by that in the Plan Change 2 in the Horizons region, we'll be able to get over the line. It's about Horizons backing down a little bit and creating an alternative pathway for us, because we're not dairy farmers, we're not pastoral farmers. We need a different set of guiding principles in order for us to be consentable.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain that fully for us, because, from the outset, reading a headline, you can assume, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And it certainly was the first reaction as soon as the draft national policy statement came out. So what would you like to see in closing, Emma, and where this freshwater policy ends up?
I would really like to see the exemption. I think under just quickly the EMS, we've reduced our inputs and our leaching by close to 50%, which I think is amazing. If every grower in New Zealand reduces their leaching rate by 50%, you're nearly Bob's your uncle. And that exemption takes into account the high rainfall of Pukekohe and the Horowhenua region, and potentially it also secures a heck of a lot of food, affordable food, for the rest of New Zealand.
Sorry, I should say it's last. It's a habit of mine. I'm just looking down here at the comments. We're talking a lot about skill shortages. How are you getting on in your industry?
We're terrified.
Oh, God. Not another one.
Yeah. We've got a lot of RSEs who have been stuck here since September last year. I have them from Tonga, Samoa and Kiribati. We're one of the very few vegetable production units that use RSE staff, and they supplement our core local staff. And I don't know how we're going to get through the December, January, February season without some solution to this.
I don't often drink whiskey, Emma, but after tonight, I think I'm going to go and have one because, oh my goodness, it's coming every which way. I wish you all the best with your particular mission, the winter, and of course your staffing situation as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's Emma Clarke from Woodhaven Gardens near Levin, and of course she is a councillor for Manawatu-Whanganui area as well.
This is Sarah's Country.